everything. But the crystalline beings in their arrogance still saw only primitive creatures playing with crude tools. They had no idea that 10 months after their capture, Jake's combined human-alien settlement looked nothing like the primitive camps the Zephyrians expected to find. Stone buildings rose from cleared ground. Organized gardens produced food in carefully planned rows. Workshops hummed with activity as different species worked together to create increasingly sophisticated tools and weapons. Jake stood on the wooden watchtower Carlos had designed and built. From this height, he could see the entire settlement. Human engineering combined with alien knowledge had created something remarkable. Workshops, living quarters, defensive walls, and even a primitive factory where they mass-produced weapons and tools. The morning patrol killed 3 more of those armored lizards, Lisa reported as she climbed up to join him. That makes 15 this week. At this rate, we're going to wipe them out entirely. Jake nodded. The local predators that had once terrorized individual survivors now fled when they saw organized hunting parties. Humans with their tactical knowledge, combined with the various alien species and their different strengths, had become the apex predators on this world. Any word from the other settlements? Jake asked. Stone Shaper got a message through this morning. The Riverside settlement took out a major predator nest. The mountain group found some kind of metal deposits they can use for better tools. And the swamp settlement. Lisa paused and grinned. The swamp settlement captured one of the Zephyrian observation drones. Jake felt excitement surge through him. They captured one? How? Apparently those big flyers from the northern continent have some kind of electromagnetic field around them. When they attacked the drone, it disrupted the Zephyrian systems. The drone crashed right into their camp. This was the breakthrough they had been hoping for. For weeks, all the settlements had been working to understand Zephyrian technology. Now they finally had a piece to study up close. Carlos appeared at the bottom of the tower. Jake, you need to see what Amy found. They climbed down to find Amy in her laboratory, which had grown from a simple workspace into a sophisticated chemistry and biology facility. She was bent over a stone table examining what looked like old bones, but these were different from the animal remains they usually worked with. These are from the old campsites we found last week, Amy explained. But look at this. She pointed to markings carved into one of the larger bones. This isn't just random scratching. It's organized writing, technical diagrams. Jake examined the bone more closely. The markings showed detailed drawings of mechanical devices, chemical formulas, and what looked like maps of the local area. Someone was keeping records, Jake realized. Detailed technical records. Amy nodded excitedly. Not just records, instructions. Whoever made these carvings was leaving information for future test subjects. Look at this section. She pointed to a series of symbols. It's a chemical formula for an explosive compound using local materials. Carlos studied the markings over Jake's shoulder. And this part shows how to build a catapult using specific types of wood and animal sinew. The calculations are perfect. There's more, Amy said, producing another carved bone. This one has detailed observations about Zephyrian technology, power sources, communication frequencies, and weaknesses in their defensive systems. Jake felt his pulse quicken. Weaknesses? Amy read from the carved symbols. Their energy shields are designed to stop high-energy attacks, but they're vulnerable to sustained low-energy impacts, and their observation systems have blind spots in certain electromagnetic frequencies. Who made these? Lisa asked, examining the bones. Amy pointed to a name carved at the bottom of one bone. Dr. Peter Hayes, xenotechnology specialist. He was captured 3 years ago. According to these records, his group survived for over 6 months before they were finally overwhelmed. Jake recognized the name. Peter Hayes had been one of the leading experts on alien technology before his disappearance. If anyone could figure out how to beat the Zephyrians, it would be him. Is there any indication of what happened to his group? Jake asked. Amy's expression grew grim. The last entries suggest they were preparing for some kind of major attack on the Zephyrian facilities. But the records end abruptly. Either they succeeded and escaped, or they were wiped out in the attempt. Carlos was studying the technical diagrams with growing excitement. These weapon designs are incredible. With our current resources, we could build most of these. And this siege engine, Jake, this could take out one of their observation posts. Jake made a decision. Get word to all the other settlements. We're going to build everything Dr. Hayes designed. Every weapon, every device, every trap, and we're going to coordinate our attacks. Over the next week, the settlement transformed again. The workshops that had been producing hunting weapons and tools now focused on military equipment. Following Dr. Hayes's detailed instructions, they built siege engines capable of hurling massive projectiles hundreds of yards. They created explosive devices using local materials that could breach the strongest walls. Stone Shapers people contributed their knowledge of energy manipulation. They showed the humans how to build primitive but effective electromagnetic weapons that could disrupt Zephyrian technology. Vine Walker's group provided expertise in biological warfare, creating toxins and acids that could eat through alien materials. The captured drone arrived from the swamp settlement, Lisa announced as a group of carriers brought the damaged device into their workshop. Rootfinder says they've already learned how to disrupt the communication systems. Jake examined the Zephyrian drone. It was smaller than he had expected, but clearly sophisticated. The crystalline structure was unlike anything human technology could produce, but it was also damaged, with visible cracks and burnt areas where the electromagnetic attack had affected it. Amy and Carlos worked together to carefully disassemble the device. Each component was studied, analyzed, and compared to Dr. Hayes's notes. Slowly, they began to understand how Zephyrian technology worked. It's based on harmonic resonance, Carlos reported after 3 days of intensive study. They use sound waves at specific frequencies to control energy flow. That's why they communicate through harmonic patterns. Amy nodded in agreement. And that gives us a way to fight them. If we can generate the right counter frequencies, we can disrupt their entire technological system. Jake felt a fierce satisfaction growing in his chest. The Zephyrians had made a fundamental error. They had assumed that primitive species could never understand advanced technology. But humans had been reverse engineering alien technology for centuries. And when combined with the knowledge of other intelligent species, they were capable of far more than their captors imagined. How long to build the counter-frequency generators? Jake asked. With all settlements working together? Maybe 2 weeks, Carlos estimated. But we'll need to coordinate the attack perfectly. Hit all their observation posts at the same time, before they can adapt their systems. Lisa was already working on the coordination problem. Using the communication techniques Stone Shapers people had developed, she could send messages to all 7 settlements within hours. Plans could be shared, timing could be synchronized, and strategies could be coordinated across the entire testing ground. There's something else, Amy said, looking up from Dr. Hayes's records. According to these notes, the Zephyrians have a central facility somewhere on this world. A main research station where they coordinate all their experiments. If we could locate it and take it out, we could free everyone they've ever captured, Jake finished. Not just escape ourselves, but shut down their entire operation. That night, as Jake stood watch on the tower, he looked up at the stars. Somewhere up there, Zephyrian scientists were recording data about the primitive species in their testing ground. They thought they were studying simple survival instincts and basic tool-making abilities. They had no idea they were about to face a coordinated military assault by 7 different intelligent species working together with captured alien technology and weapons designed by one of humanity's most brilliant scientists. Jake smiled grimly and checked his weapon. Tomorrow, they would begin the final preparations. The Zephyrians wanted to study primitive species adaptation. They were about to get a lesson they would never forget. The attack began at dawn. Across the testing ground, 7 different settlements launched their coordinated assault on the Zephyrian observation posts. Jake crouched behind a fallen log, watching the nearest post through a scope Carlos had crafted, from polished crystal and carved bone. The observation post hung in the air like a small crystal mountain, supported by some kind of energy field that made the air shimmer around it. Zephyrian observers floated inside, recording data about their primitive test subjects. They had no idea that those same subjects were about to teach them a lesson about underestimating human ingenuity. Counter-frequency generator is ready, Carlos whispered from his position near the massive siege engine they had built. The weapon was a masterpiece of primitive engineering, capable of launching projectiles with devastating force and accuracy. Biological weapons are loaded, Amy reported. She had developed a concentrated acid that could eat through Zephyrian crystal structures. The delivery system was simple but effective. Arrows dipped in the corrosive mixture. Lisa lay flat on her belly, drawing her bow. First target is the communication array on the lower section. Once that's down, they can't call for help. Stone Shaper and his allies were positioned around the post perimeter. Their electromagnetic weapons were charged and ready. Vine Walker's group had set up in the trees, ready to rain down projectiles from above. Jake looked at his watch, a simple sundial he had carved from stone. In 30 seconds, every settlement across the testing ground would launch their attack simultaneously. The Zephyrians would face a coordinated assault from multiple directions using weapons and tactics they never expected primitive species to possess. 10 seconds, Jake whispered. The counter-frequency generator hummed to life. Carlos had built it according to Dr. Hayes' specifications, using components salvaged from the captured drone and materials found throughout the forest. It generated sound waves at precisely the frequency needed to disrupt Zephyrian technology. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The observation post's energy field flickered and wavered. The crystal structure began to vibrate with visible distortion. Inside the post, Jake could see the Zephyrian observers moving in obvious distress. Now, Jake commanded. Lisa's arrow struck the communication array with perfect accuracy. The biological acid began eating through the crystal structure immediately. Sparks flew as the system overloaded and died. Carlos triggered the siege engine. A massive stone projectile, wrapped in explosive charges, flew through the air with a sound like thunder. It struck the observation post's main structure and detonated in a shower of crystal fragments and energy discharge. Stone Shaper's electromagnetic weapons fired in sequence, sending pulses of disruptive energy into the post's power systems. The Zephyrians' technology, designed to counter advanced alien weapons, had no defense against the crude but effective human devices. The observation post began to fall. Its anti-gravity systems failed as the counter-frequency generator continued to disrupt its harmonic controls. The crystal structure cracked and split as Amy's biological weapons ate through its support framework. "Move in," Jake ordered. "Capture any survivors." They rushed the crashed observation post, weapons ready. The Zephyrian observers inside were alive but stunned. Their crystalline bodies were cracked and damaged by the electromagnetic attacks. They tried to communicate through their harmonic language, but the counter-frequency generator made it impossible. Resonance of Stars, the High Curator who had originally captured Jake's team, lay trapped beneath a section of broken crystal. His rainbow light was flickering weakly, and his voice in their minds was filled with shock and confusion. "This is impossible," the alien managed to say. "Primitive species cannot coordinate attacks, cannot build weapons, cannot understand our technology." Jake knelt down next to the trapped Zephyrian. In his hand was a spear made from the leg bone of the first predator they had killed, sharpened to a razor edge and reinforced with metal they had smelted from local ore. "You made 3 big mistakes," Jake said calmly. "First, you assumed that because we don't have advanced technology, we can't understand it. Second, you thought that because we come from different species, we can't work together. And third, you believed that being primitive means being weak." Jake stood and gestured to his companions. Human and alien allies working together, armed, with weapons that combined Stone Age materials with advanced scientific knowledge. Behind them, the settlement they had built showed what intelligent beings could accomplish when they refused to accept defeat. "You wanted to study primitive species adaptation," Jake continued. "Congratulations. You just learned that when you push intelligent beings into a corner, they adapt by becoming more dangerous than you ever imagined." Reports came in from the other settlements through Stone Shaper's communication network. All 7 observation posts had been destroyed or captured. Zephyrian technology across the testing ground was either offline or under Allied control. But Jake wasn't finished. Amy had found something in the wreckage of the observation post. a navigation device that showed the location of the main Zephyrian research facility. "It's in orbit around the planet," Amy reported, studying the crystalline display. "A space station about the size of a small city. That's where they coordinate all their experiments." Carlos examined the navigation data with growing excitement. According to this, they have transport ships that regularly shuttle between the station and the planet. "If we could capture one, we could take the fight to them," Jake finished. "End this permanently." Over the next 2 days, they prepared for the final phase of their rebellion. Using captured Zephyrian technology and Dr. Hayes's research notes, they built weapons specifically designed to function in space. Pressure suits were crafted from animal hides and salvaged materials. Breathing apparatus were constructed using organic filters and primitive but effective air recycling systems. The transport ship arrived on schedule, expecting to pick up routine observation data. Instead, it found a coordinated ambush. The Zephyrian crew, accustomed to dealing with primitive test subjects, was completely unprepared for the sophisticated attack that met them. Electromagnetic weapons disrupted their ship's systems. Biological weapons ate through their hull plating, and when the smoke cleared, Jake and his team were standing in the ship's control room armed with primitive weapons but backed by advanced tactical knowledge. "Take us to your research station," Jake commanded the surviving Zephyrian pilot. The space station was massive, a crystal structure that caught and reflected starlight in brilliant patterns. It hung against the darkness like a jeweled crown, beautiful and alien and completely unprepared for what was about to hit it. "Remember," Jake said to his team as they approached the station, "we're not here for revenge. We're here to free every intelligent being they've ever captured and to make sure they never do this to anyone else." The assault on the station was swift and brutal. The Zephyrians had powerful weapons designed to fight other advanced civilizations, but they were helpless against humans armed with sharpened bones and stones who refused to follow the rules of civilized warfare. Jake's spear, carved from the bones of a predator that had once hunted humans, pierced through energy shields that could stop plasma cannons. Amy's biological weapons, brewed in clay pots using forest materials, ate through hull plating that could resist nuclear explosions. Carlos's mechanical devices, built from wood and sinew and metal, destroyed computer systems that had coordinated the enslavement of dozens of species. When the battle was over, Jake stood in the station's central command chamber. Around him, his team and their alien allies worked to free the thousands of intelligent beings held in the station's testing facilities. Species from across the galaxy, all captured and studied by the Zephyrians, all now free. Resonance of Stars, the High Curator, lay defeated at Jake's feet. His crystalline body was cracked and dim, his harmonics reduced to weak whispers. "How?" the alien managed to ask. "How did primitive beings defeat our advanced civilization?" Jake looked at the spear in his hand, then at his companions. Human and alien, working together with tools made from bones and stones and plants. They had defeated an advanced spacefaring civilization using nothing but intelligence, determination, and the refusal to accept defeat. "You never understood what primitive really means," Jake said. "You thought it meant weak. But primitive just means we remember where we came from. We remember what it's like to fight for survival with nothing but our bare hands and our brains. That's not weakness. That's the most dangerous thing in the universe." Jake walked to the station's communication system and sent a message to every Zephyrian facility in the galaxy. The message was simple. "The primitive species you captured have taken your research station. We've freed all your prisoners. And if you ever try to enslave intelligent beings again, we'll come for you with our bones and stones and show you what real evolution looks like." The station's engines fired, carrying thousands of freed beings back to their homeworlds. In the cargo bays, they took examples of Zephyrian technology but also kept their primitive weapons as reminders of what intelligence and determination could accomplish. As they traveled through space toward home, Jake stood in the observation deck looking at the stars. In his hand was the bone spear that had started there. The big yellow bus pulled up to Pacific Northwest University with a loud screech of brakes. Jake Miller stood outside the science building, watching 12 very strange passengers step off the bus. These were not normal college students. These were aliens from 6 different worlds, and they were here for the first ever student exchange program between Earth and the Galactic Education Council. Jake had been a professor for 20 years, but nothing had prepared him for this moment. The first alien to step off the bus looked like a walking crystal. Its body was clear and blue, with light moving through it like water. This was Crix 9, a Zephyrian from a planet where everything was made of crystal and metal. Behind Crix 9 came Veltar, who looked more like a large fish than a student. Her skin was silver and wet, and she wore a special suit that kept water flowing around her body. She was from Neridia, a world that was mostly ocean. Her big, dark eyes looked around the campus with interest. The third alien was the strangest of all. Zack looked like a giant ant but walked on 2 legs. Its head was triangle-shaped and it had 4 arms instead of 2. It came from Kithera, where all the people looked like insects. Zack carried a device that made clicking sounds, which Jake knew was how it talked to the other aliens. Dr. Lisa Hayes walked up to Jake with a big smile. She had been planning this exchange program for 3 years, and now it was finally happening. Lisa was excited, but also nervous. These aliens were supposed to be much smarter than humans. Their technology was hundreds of years ahead of Earth science. "Welcome to Earth," Lisa said to the group of aliens. "We are very happy to have you here." Crix 9 stepped forward. When it spoke, its voice sounded like bells ringing. "We thank you for this opportunity. We have traveled far to learn about human knowledge." Jake almost laughed. These aliens had ships that could cross the galaxy in days. They had computers that could think faster than 1,000,000 human brains. They had weapons that could destroy entire planets. What could they possibly learn from humans? The aliens looked around the campus with curious eyes. They seemed confused by many things. Veltar pointed at a building with a sloped roof and asked, "Why do your structures have angled tops? This seems like poor design." "That's just how we build things here," Lisa explained. "The sloped roofs help with rain and snow." Zack made clicking sounds and its translator device said, "Rain and snow? What are these things?" Jake realized that these aliens came from worlds with perfect weather. They had never dealt with storms, or flooding, or any of the messy problems that humans faced every day. The group walked across campus toward the new alien dormitory. The building had been constructed just for this program using alien technology. It was made of materials that could survive asteroid impacts and energy blasts. The walls were perfectly smooth and the roof was completely flat. It looked very modern and advanced. "This is where you will live during your stay," Lisa said. "It was built using your own building methods." The aliens seemed pleased with their new home. Crix 9 ran its crystal hand along the smooth wall and said, "Excellent construction. Very efficient design." As they walked, Jake noticed the aliens looking strangely at things humans took for granted. They stared at the gutters along the building roofs. They seemed puzzled by the storm drains in the parking lots. One alien even asked why there were small rivers of concrete running between the buildings. "Those are just drainage ditches," Jake explained. "They carry water away when it rains." "Water falls from the sky on your world?" asked another alien. This one looked like a tall, thin person but had purple skin and no hair. Its name was Quinn, and it came from a desert planet. "Yes, quite often," Jake said. "Especially here in the Pacific Northwest, we get a lot of rain." The aliens exchanged looks that Jake could not understand. They seemed to think the idea of water falling from the sky was very strange. That evening, Jake and Lisa met with the human students who would be working with the aliens. There was Amy Rodriguez, a smart engineering student who loved solving problems. Ben Carter studied geology and knew everything about rocks and soil. Chris Johnson was studying physics, and Maria Santos was learning about biology. "Remember," Lisa told the human students, "these aliens are far more advanced than us. Be respectful and try to learn from them." Amy raised her hand. "Professor Hayes, if they're so advanced, why are they here? What can we teach them?" Lisa paused. It was a good question. The Galactic Education Council had requested this exchange, but they had never explained exactly what the aliens hoped to learn from humans. "I think," Jake said slowly, "they want to understand how we solve problems. Humans are known for being creative and resourceful. That first night, the aliens settled into their new dormitory. They were impressed by the advanced materials and perfect design. Everything was smooth and efficient, just like the buildings, on their home worlds. Outside, the sky was clear and full of stars. But far to the west, over the Pacific Ocean, dark clouds were beginning to form. A weather system was building strength, preparing to test both alien technology and human wisdom. The aliens went to sleep in their perfect building, excited about learning from humans. They had no idea that very soon they would discover that sometimes the most advanced species in the galaxy still had things to learn from people who knew how to dig ditches and build sloped roofs.